tal, gente? My name is Rodrigo García. I am the artistic director of Teatro Visión and your host for tonight. Bienvenidos a La Hora del Mitote. We thank you for joining us tonight. La Hora del Mitote se transmite cada viernes a las 7 p.m. por nuestra página de Facebook y en nuestro canal de YouTube. We are live at 7 o'clock every Friday on our Facebook page and our YouTube channel. We invite you to participate by sending us your questions and comments. And tonight we have an amazing panel. We have three special guests. We have A.B. Ozuna. A.B. is a 60-year-old student from East Side District. They have been performing with Teatro Visión for 8 years, as well as acting with their school. A.B. recently participated in John Hopkins Summer Youth Institute about gun policy in America and how gun violence affects our communities. Although they are not a voting age, they like to keep up to date on issues affecting the youth of today. Hello, A.B.
Hello.
We also have tonight, we're very privileged to have Tamara Alvarado, who is currently serving as executive director of the Leo M. Shortino Family Foundation, a San Jose, California-based foundation that focuses on youth and the arts. Tamara has held executive, board, and director positions at various local, regional, and national arts and community organizations, including the School of Arts and Culture at the Mexican Heritage Plaza, the Multicultural Art Leadership Institute, which I'm a graduate of, class 2, at the First Act Silicon Valley, now SB Creates. Also at MACLA, Movimiento de Arte y Cultura Latinoamericana, and WESTAF, Western States Art Foundation. Bienvenida, Tamara.
Thank you.
And we are also very delighted to have Peter Allen. Peter has served on the board of Teatro Visión on and off for the past 10 years, including several years as board president and acting managing director. In his day job, Peter is a communications and marketing professional who has worked and or volunteered on local campaigns in Santa Clara County for more than 2 decades. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here. And thank you to everyone who is watching La Hora del Mitote. Avísele a la comadre que ya empezó, and text your friends and let them know that we're live and that we're looking forward to your comments. Yes, text us. So tonight it's very special because of the people that are in the panel. But it's also about the topic that we wanted to bring, which I think is very relevant. And it may sound simple, but it's very deep and very complex, and that's why we brought different voices tonight to have this conversation, this plática. And it's about why it's important to vote, the whole thing about voting. So I like to start by just getting us into the technicalities of voting. And Peter has had, experience in this arena, and we would like to start with Peter. And Peter, if you can tell us, an overview of the whole voting process and what it is, so we can start, getting into the lingo of the vote.
Sure. Well, thank you very much, Rodrigo, for having me. Very good to see you. AB, Tamara, very good to see you. Congratulations on your new gig, but we can get into that later. But yeah, I like to think about voting in terms of the privilege that we have here in America that many other places in the world you don't have, and that's an ability to have an impact, have a voice, to have a say in the policies and the people who represent us, right? And the policies that affect us. And no matter who you are, where you come from, if you are here and if you are 18 years old, and you're a citizen, you can vote in our elections, and you can have that voice. Now, unfortunately, what you see in a lot of other countries is a repression of that voice, right? There are not free elections. You can't vote. Someone in a dark room somewhere determines your future, right? And policies that impact you and your family. So the reason to me why voting is so important is because I recognize that if I would live somewhere else in the world, I wouldn't have that privilege. And it really is, it makes it important to me to get out and take part in it. And what it is very, very simple, really. Every so often, every 2 years, every 4 years, we're asked to make a few choices. And it's sometimes between people. So someone is, say, two people are running to represent us at the city council or at the county level or in the state legislature or president of the United States, right, to lead the whole country. And we get to mark our choice and say that's who I want to represent me because of XYZ, because they have good values that I agree with, or because they're going to do things that are going to benefit me and my family and make our country a better place. But we also get to vote on issues sometimes in California, especially, and locally here in San Jose and elsewhere. You will be able to vote on measures and propositions that actually change policy, right? Because maybe the people that we elect couldn't agree, right, or couldn't get anything done. So someone decided to run around and get signatures on a petition and put something in front of us to vote on. So it's incredibly important, I think, for every single person to have a say and to have that voice, and especially when it comes to communities that have been traditionally marginalized, right? When we talk about people of color, lower income people, women, young people, our LGBTQ partners out there. There's so many folks who are being impacted by policies every day, and if I think we find that if we organize as communities, intersectionally, that really hot word right now, especially, we can really move things in a direction that benefits all of these people, but only if we get involved, and only if we all step up and have a voice and get our friends and neighbors and our relatives to vote. So yeah, without getting too deep, I think that's the importance of voting.
Thank you, Peter. And more on the technicalities of voting. There is this process that needs to happen in order for someone who is eligible to vote, because not everyone can vote.
Right.
Can you start by just telling us who is eligible to vote?
Sure.
This year.
Sure. Well, if you're 18 years old and you're a resident and you're a citizen of the country of the United States, you are eligible to vote. And if you're going to be 18, if you're not quite 18 yet, you're going to be 18 by the time the election rolls around. You are eligible to vote in that election. And maybe even if you're 16, you actually have an opportunity to pre-register to vote. And as a 16-year-old, you can go to the DMV or go to the registrar of voters online, and you can pre-register, so that when you turn 18, you will automatically be registered, and you'll get your information or your voter information, and where to go to vote. Voting really is just a three-step, or registering and getting involved is really a three-step process for me. It's registering, so and then it's educating, it's finding out what's going on, when the election is, who's running, what's on the ballot, what do you think about those things, and then it's mobilizing, and that's actually getting up and doing it. The good news this year, and the good news I think going forward, is that we're all, because of COVID, because of sheltering in place, and because of safety concerns, we're all getting mailed a ballot this year in California. So you'll get a ballot in the mail if you're registered to vote, and you'll be able to return it. You probably have received it already, and you'll be able to return it through the mail with no postage necessary, no stamp necessary. You can just give it to your postal worker. You can put it in the mailbox. You can find a vote. There's plenty of vote centers out there, and other places where you can drop the ballot off. You can go to sccvote.org. Very good. That's the Registrar of Voters website, and find out all this information. And even now, at this moment, you can still register. If you go to one of these vote centers, you'll be able to register. You can even register on Election Day itself, on November the 3rd, which is 2 weeks from next Tuesday, or one week from next Tuesday. Man, we're getting very close. Within 2 weeks. So on November 3rd, you could go down to the vote center and register to vote even and vote. So register, educate, get yourself educated, find out what's going on, and mobilize, get out and vote, and make a plan for all these things so that you have time and you have the ability to get it done. But they're making it so much easier now because of the vote by mail system, and you can rest assured that it's incredibly secure, it's safe, it's the safest way to vote, and it's the easiest way to vote because you don't even have to, leave the house if you don't want to. Although I will want to get out and see the sun these days.
And something important for anyone who at the time of voting, they might not be able to leave the house because they are sick. It is important to remember that they can have someone drop off their ballot at the box office or at the voting location. Am I right, Peter?
Correct. Yeah. Actually, if you want to, this would be a good time probably to bring up those slides about the process and different opportunities to vote. You can actually have someone drop your ballot off for you. Technically, they are supposed to. There's a separate place on the envelope. There's a blue envelope that you put your ballot in, and there's a separate place on the envelope for someone to sign if they are submitting it for you. So make sure that they do that. But also make sure that you sign it. That's the most important. I should mention that you need to sign the envelope that you put the ballot in with the signature that's on your voter registration so that they can match it up later. So these are a bunch of different ways that you can cast your vote. You can vote by mail. So like I said, return it postage paid in the return envelope that you're provided. You can find an official ballot drop box. These are at almost every library in the city of San Jose, at least, has a drop box, but all across the county. And there are going to be about 100 vote centers that are going to be open. These are like your normal voting polling places where you would go and vote in person. And you can still do that. They'll be open 4 days before the election. The vote centers will be open, in our county 10 days before the election. And you can go to vote at any of them, or you can drop your ballot off there too. You don't have to go to a specific one. Just drop your ballot anywhere. You don't have to go to a specific vote center to vote. You can go to any of them. So make sure that you get out and take advantage of one of those opportunities. And I would say if you're not eligible to vote, if you're not eligible even to get registered yet, there's still so many ways you can get involved. And I think we all need to get involved. Mobilizing your community, reaching out to others who might be eligible and might not have decided on some issues yet. So please don't, just because you can't vote yet or just can't vote for a variety of reasons, make sure that it's really important to get engaged, because if you're a resident of this country, if you're living here, you were affected by the policies that impact us, no matter if you're a citizen or not. And that's really important to remember. So please get involved, get engaged. And if you need any other ideas for how to do that, I'm sure we can follow up and get you pointed in the right direction.
Thank you, Peter, and thank you to Luis Castillo. He says, thank you for the words of encouragement and for the honest reflection on democratic participation. Thank you. We invite everyone to send us your comment here. And if you have any questions for any of the panelists or just a question in general, please put it on the comment section. We are in La Hora del Mitote, talking about the importance of voting with A.B. Ozuna, Tamara Alvarado, and Peter Allen. Thank you. So now let's, after this information, I think it is very important to now bring it to us as people in the community, why it is important. Tamara, in your experience working with the community and working with very diverse communities, you have worked with youth, with adults, with people of all ages in different programs. Why do you think it's important to vote?
Gracias, Rodrigo. So good to see you and to see, to see us four and everybody out there. I know I might have a couple comadres watching who've been texting me over here, sending me some messages. So shout out to my comadre Corina Siochimali Herrera Loera and all the names. So why is it important to vote? I think there's a couple of things. Depends on the person who I'm talking to, right? You might have somebody who's like, my vote doesn't count. It doesn't matter. So then I give them the whole argument around local, right? How important it is to vote on your local school boards, your city council, your county supervisors, your assembly members. What else? Different propositions and other issues that come up that affect you locally. They're very much place-based, and it's about your school board, and it's maybe the district that you went to school in, or maybe it's your district where you live. And that matters a lot. And even though San Jose, for example, is the 10th largest city in the country, which sometimes surprises us, those of us who've been here for a while, that we are actually the 10th largest city, but sometimes it feels real small, right? So there are some benefits to this, which is, and I may sound a little bit, too Pollyanna for some people, but whatever, I don't care, is that elected officials, compared to other cities, are accessible, right? You can go down to City Hall or be on, these video conferences now, which actually is somewhat of a tiny silver lining to this pandemic, is that so many more people can get onto the Zoom. There are a number of issues related to that. But what I'm getting at is that a number of us can actually meet, greet, and have a relationship with elected officials where they know you can access them, ask them about where do they stand on particular issues, and you can actually make your own opinions and thoughts known. For example, I've knocked on doors for you, Peter, and that was really great to go out into your neighborhood and to meet people. I'm knocking on doors now for a campaign, and that's really incredible opportunity to get to know your own community and get to see people from different age brackets and different backgrounds who are registered voters, and really get to understand what people care about, and that we end up caring about the same things. So anyways, I got a lot to say about this. I do want to kind of say that because we're here in La Hora del Mitote, here in San Jose, and I know we have audience members that maybe are all over the country or all over the world, or qué sé yo. I feel like for those who are maybe newer to voting, or maybe you can't vote for a number of reasons, then it's important to do the education part. Know what these issues are and what are these propositions and what are these elected or candidates about. Because I'm not surprised. People will go to you if they see you as a person that's out there, and maybe you're serving the community, or you're part of Teatro Visión and you're always in the cast for 8 years. They end up thinking that you know about everything, right? And they might be asking you questions, and every election day, or close to, I start getting text messages asking me, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? So I think that the local piece is incredibly important. I have thoughts about, national and statewide and things like that, but I'll keep it at that for now.
Thank you. Yeah, certainly. I think one thing that you mentioned at the beginning is how we, or some of us, might respond to voting. Well, like, oh, para qué? It's not going to make a change. Like, one vote less is not going to make a difference, but it does, because it's like a ripple effect, right? And I think something that I really like that you mentioned, and Peter also mentioned, the educational part. Mm-hmm. Because educating ourselves about the issues that concern our community is very important, because we might be having those conversations with more people who wouldn't know or wouldn't cast their vote, mm-hmm. because they just don't understand what that means, what the proposition X, Y, Z
the means. Whole alphabet soup.
And I think it is very, very important, because particularly this year, we're not only voting for a president and a vice president, we're always also looking at a local level what affects our immediate community, and this is very important. Thank you, Tamara. Go ahead.
Just real quickly, counties even differ. You might be in Santa Cruz County and your ballot is 1 page front and back. Here in Santa Clara County, at least my ballot was 4 full pages front and back. And so, 1 year you might just have just 1 page. Another year you might have four pages. So I would say, don't get intimidated, right? Don't worry. Call somebody. Call a few somebodies. Voting is an incredible privilege and it's our right, for those who can. And I know it's very privileged to be able to vote, but there's no shame in your game. Call somebody and ask, what do you think? Have a conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you very much. So I was reading on some of the articles, and I came across this note just for 10 hours ago, where it says that there is a record breaking in terms of the youth voting turnout. It is estimated that over 3 million votes have been cast by people between the ages of 18 to 29. And that's amazing. And right now, Texas is having the highest youth vote turnout. And we hope that California and all the other states continue. So I like to bring that to the youth voice. And AB, you're someone who has been always very proactive about and being very vocal about what matters to you, and also growing up in a family that's also very active in the community. What can you say about the importance of voting from the youth perspective?
First of all, thank you for having me. And voting right now, it's really hard not to be able to vote in this election, just because everyone keeps saying it's just another election, and it's not. Like, this election is going to determine my future for the next 4 years. And that's scary to think, because I saw how the past 4 years were, and I'm like, oh no, not again. So it's nerve-wracking. And there are many of us youth who can't vote this year, and it's just scary not being able to like drop off my ballot with my mom and be like, I can make a change right now. And it's the number of youth, it's the millennials. Like, thank God for millennials right now. Like, I'm so happy for them right now that they're getting up and they're voting, because they saw how much it was affecting our community and how much it was affecting us. And sorry, my phone was ringing. And it's scary. Right now is a really scary time, and I won't lie about that. And I think that's why youth voting is really important right now, because we're all in fear of what could happen. And oh no, we have to just sit here and be scared until the election happens when we find out who's president. Like, no, like you have to get up and you have to go to the registration and you have to vote and you have to submit it actually and get it mailed, or go early and vote, because that matters. Or vote early, please vote early. And it's always the thought of, if I don't do it, someone else will. And if we have one person saying that, and then another person saying that, and then 20 more people saying that, like, it adds up. The people who didn't vote 4 years ago are the reason why things are today. And so you can't just be like, I'm not going to do it. It's fine if I don't do it. Because you're not just voting for not yourself. You're not voting for me. And you're not voting for my sister and my niece and my friends. And we need you to vote, because if you don't vote, our futures are at stake. Like, our future right now, our youth, we're leaving it up to everyone 18 plus to make sure it's made in a way where we'll be safe, where I could walk down the street without worrying if I get to marry my spouse in the future, or if I could even say I'm a non-binary person. And that's scary. Like, right now, we're all just living in fear of, and as a brown Chicano person who doesn't identify in the gender spectrum, my rights all around are at stake right now. And I don't want my niece to grow up in fear of that either. So if you have any opportunity to vote, or if you can't vote, but you know someone who can and just doesn't want to, literally, like Tamara said, be on the phone with them and be like, but why? Like, why? Why don't you want to vote? Like, it's not affecting you. Like, just vote. Like, what's it going to do? It's going to take you 10 minutes to vote. Why are you not voting right now? And so and just reminding them you're not voting just for yourself. Like, your vote doesn't just affect you. My grandma made a group, my 78-year-old grandma made a group chat with all her grandchildren, her nieces and nephews, her daughters, saying, I need you guys to vote this year. And literally all of us were like, yes, grandma, even us who can't vote. We're like, you got it. Whatever you need us to do, we got you. Because she's seeing all her years, all our elders are seeing their years and years of hard work and moving up the movement, being undone right in front of their eyes. So it's not just for the youth, it's for the elders too, who fought for us to be where we are today. And so, yeah, I mean, it's crazy. Vote early. Do that. I recommend that. Vote early.
One thing that it's so true from everything that you said is, if we get a picture of a colony of ants, you know, how they build their, how do you call it, a nest? You know, their home.
Sure.
Es un hormiguero, no sé cómo
The
se
hill,
dice.
I guess.
That one. You know, it's not built by one ant. You know, it's a bunch of ants coming together, bringing one pebble each, and then they built this. And if one thinks that their pebble would not make a difference and another thinks the same, they would end up with no home. And I think that's, you know, that's an analogy of what you were saying, of the importance of, like, well, my vote doesn't count, but if I think that way, maybe 10, 100,000 people are thinking the same, and that's going to then make a big difference. Thank you very much. Again, folks, we are here in La Hora del Mitote, and in, believe it or not, se me enchina el cuero nomás de pensar. I get goosebumps of having these wonderful people here: A.B. Ozuna, Peter Allen, and Tamara Alvarado in this wonderful panel. And I want to thank the folks who are contributing with their comments. Our friend Corina, hello, comadre, and the rest of the panelists. Thank you for having this very important conversation. I love that you have youth in this panel. How could we not? How could we not? Ophelia Salcedo, 100%. And this came right when you were speaking, just so you know. And yeah. Mama Ozuna, you're brave and beautiful soul.
Aww.
Thank you for being such a strong voice for young people everywhere. Perla M. Arellano, thank you, AB, for advocating for the youth and acknowledging the impact of our elders. And Fernando Solorio, hello and good evening to all of you, heart. Thank you very much. We are here in La Hora del Mitote. Remember, we're here every Friday at 7 p.m. with different guests. And we welcome your comments. We welcome your questions. And, you know, we'd like to have this plática, this conversation, and learn from each other. That's, you know, that's how our ancestors did it, you know, passing the knowledge. And we have tonight an important topic about the importance of voting and bringing different perspectives. And continuing with this, Peter, I'm still, you know, I was not born here. I've been here only a few years. For a while already. But there is this part about the voting, which I think, if you can help us understand how the voting works in terms of who gets to elect a president, for example.
Sure. So for president, as far as the president goes, everyone in the country, every registered voter has an opportunity to vote for president, because they're obviously the executive of the whole country. However, one thing I wanted to, this is a great opportunity to bring up, is the way that systems have been created over time to suppress the vote, to keep specific groups of people even from voting and from having access to voting. And one of those, and I'm really glad that AB brought this up because about the elders, because we have fought so many people have fought and bled and died since this country began to get the right to vote. Because at the time when the country was created, the only folks that had the right to vote were people that looked like me, white men, right? And not even just that, they had to own land. And up until recently, I wouldn't have qualified either. So very limited amount of people. And yet we all know that this country has always been very diverse and has had so many different types of people. And of course, women. So over time, we have fought and fought and fought, and finally, at least secured the idea that everyone in this country is equal, and that we all have a right to vote. But still, to this day, there are efforts out there, even in California, even in Santa Clara County, where we're very progressive and we are very, forward-thinking and diverse. There are efforts out there to keep you from voting. So, anyone can vote for president, but each state has this certain number of what they call electoral votes, right? And this was all determined by a mathematical equation that was developed in the 1700s, right? And originally it was because the smaller states in the country wanted to make sure that they were represented well, right? And that the bigger states and the more populous or populated states didn't have too much or more than their fair share of say, right, in how things went. So each state was allotted these electoral votes, and it was supposed to sort of balance out that power. But what it's done over time, now that we have 50 states and we're this huge country and we have so many different regions and types of places where folks vote, what it's done is actually dilute, or it's minimized, or it's diminished the power of a vote, say, from a Californian. California, we're the biggest state in the nation, but we have a limited number of electoral votes, out of the big pie, even as big as we are. Whereas someone in Wyoming who votes in that state, where they have they have more electoral votes than they probably would have if they were here, their vote matters a little bit more in the greater math, because what ends up happening is, and it happened with Donald Trump 4 years ago, you can get elected without having a majority of the nationwide vote. There was something like 3 million more Californians, or 3 million more Americans, voted for Hillary Clinton than voted for Donald Trump. But because of the way the states worked out, Donald Trump won very, very, very narrow victory. And when we talk about how much one vote matters, Donald Trump is really our president, because in three states, and these are Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, if you total up the vote in those three states, he won by 70,000 votes. 70,000 votes over three states. That's like nothing. That's less than that's like a city council district here in San Jose. So it's unfortunately, the system is set up so that if sometimes you have to win just very, very big. You have to win even more than you should have to in order to win a majority. So in that case, we all get to vote for president, but at the end of the day, not all of our votes count as much. And that's something that we have to change. But here's the catch. We can only change it if we vote. We can only change it if we elect people, good people, and we support policies that will help us get there. Something like that's going to take like a very big movement out there in the community, a constitutional amendment, right? We can actually change our constitution. That's one of the great things about America. Is that we can change our rules, and you need to have the power and the will and the people power to do it. So that's something that can be changed, and we can only change if we vote. And if we vote at the lower level, right? So if you take it all the way down, Tamara was talking about her 4-page ballot. That's because she can vote for school board, right? So the people that set the policies for AB's schools and for our youth, right? Then it's policies that impact them, but they can't have a voice in the election, right? So we have to have a voice for them. And city council, right? So people who determine, when your street gets paved, how many, what kind of policing environment do we have, right? Are we doing more community policing, or are we, giving police tanks and guns and all the rest, right? That's decisions that are made by the city council. And then your county election. So depending on where you live, it all depends on sort of many different overlapping districts, right? So if you live in a certain city, you'll get to vote in their elections. If you live in Saratoga, you vote in Saratoga elections. If you live in East Palo Alto, you vote in East Palo Alto elections, San Jose, right? But the issues are similar, especially in local elections across the board, just about, especially in the Bay Area. So it really is, it's determined, what you can vote for is determined by where you live, but almost all of us get to vote for these things all up and down the ballot. So local elections, state, there's two different houses in the state legislature, right? The Assembly, the Senate. Some of you might be voting on those this year. And then there's governor, who is the leader of California, right? So every voter in California gets to vote for governor, but you only vote for a specific person in the Assembly or the state Senate, right? Depending on where you live, similar to city council and other things. So it can seem really complicated. The good news is that where you live and where you're registered, you're going to get a ballot that you don't have to figure all this out. They're going to send you a ballot that has all of these races and all of these candidates on it. You just have to decide how you want to vote on any one of those things. And but yeah, it's incredibly important to remember how much folks had to fight to get to this point of us all having this right and privilege. And I just want to say that I don't understand why we can't lower the voting age to 16. It makes sense to me. If you can drive, if we can give you a driver's license, we should, you should be allowed to vote, right? I think I got some supporters here, so we'll work on that. We'll get an initiative for that. Yeah, we'll get some signatures for that in the next election. But there is actually a ballot measure this year that's going to kind of lower the voting age. If you're 17 and you're going to be 18 by the time the general election runs around, you'd be able to vote in the primary election. So that's a small change. You can vote for that. It's Prop 18, I believe, if you wanted to make that change. So, and Prop 17 also would also. And 17 restores voting rights to parolees, actually, to people who go to prison, felons. Even if you're a citizen, and once you get out, in California at least, you're not allowed to vote until you get off parole. And again, policies are being enacted that impact parolees and inmates in prisons all the time. So stands to reason they should be allowed to vote too. But that's my last bit of advocacy, because we're nonpartisan here.
Thank you, Peter. I think it is very important to emphasize that part, that even though, for example, when electing a president, it's not directly the popular vote that decides. It's still the numbers still count towards the electoral college. Am I right? So we do need to have a lot of votes.
Absolutely, yeah. This election especially, yeah. And that's only for president. It's very strange. It's only for president, but it obviously makes a huge impact.
And I think something that you and Tamara have mentioned is that elections are not only, particularly this year, not only for president, but a lot of these other regional and local policies that, state policies that still affect. And by making those systemic changes, we're still contributing to making a larger change, because nothing happens only on one place. We can still contribute to the change from different directions. So no matter what, there is no reason to not vote this year. Thank you. I want to take a moment to just acknowledge those who are following us. Hugo Badu, saludos,
Hugo.
líderes. Fernando again, great topic. Mario Ozuna, he has a question. As individuals who are so involved in your community, who inspires you to pass down the importance of voting?
I say the person who's related to that commenter goes first.
Go ahead, Peter.
Avi.
Oh my God, am I frozen? I think I'm breathing.
No, you're not frozen.
You all inspire me, if you can hear me.
Hey, Jessica, I saw your comment.
Yes.
Go ahead, Mom. Go ahead.
So, I mean, I can't vote yet, so I can't really tell you that. But who would inspire me about in the future? My grandma. And someone who recently passed away, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, definitely is a big one, just because she did so much for our community, and it's scary with her not being here anymore, just because of the whole senator seat and all that fun. But her, like any female in my life, because they're all super strong warriors who have literally taught me how to be the person I am today. So all of them, and then obviously my 6-year-old niece, who is just the most cutest little girl I know, and I know that whatever happens, it's not just going to impact me, it's going to impact her. And I mean, I'm almost 18. Like, I could be out of the house. I could be like, I'm going to go to Mexico now. Like, forget the US. But she can't. She's here for another 12 years. So her above everyone else, just because whatever happens, I want to make sure she could grow up loving whoever she wants, being whoever she wants, being her true self in a safe place without worrying about what's going on around her. So yeah, her.
Yeah, that's right. I would just add, I was raised by a mom who was sort of voting when she was voting when she couldn't vote yet, if you will, by making her voice heard, teaching women how to drive whose husbands wouldn't teach them, by showing up on the picket line when she was in disagreement. So, you know, that spirit of voting, there's voting in a formal way, but then there's also voting with your actions, right? And where you show up and where you spend money, and you're voting, right? Every time you step out the door and you say, I'm going to go to this store or that store, I'm going to, you know, shop here or shop there. There's a whole bunch of things. So my mom was definitely, and once she became a citizen, she was always very actively talking about who she was going to vote for and why. And to this day, you know, we'll have long old conversations about this candidate and that candidate. So she stays connected.
Sorry if I was freezing earlier, but I wanted to just say that everyone on this panel inspires me to keep doing this work and to inspire other people to vote, especially the youth. I do so much work with youth in this area, and it to see how much thought and intelligence and care and empathy they bring to conversations about anything from race to sexual harassment to any immigration, any of the big issues that we're facing, housing right now. It's very inspiring, and it makes me want to just keep engaged and keep people engaged, because the only way we're going to move forward is by doing that, just consistently bringing people in and educating our youth, and of course the children I have yet to have. That inspires me a lot, because I want to make sure that I bring them into and leave them a world that's better than what I found.
That's right.
Great, thank you. Folks, we're in the last leg of La Hora del Mitote, but you still have time to participate, comment, questions, saludos, lo que sea. Si nos quiere mandar una receta de nuevo guisado, también, aquí la tenemos. Remember that we're in La Hora del Mitote every Friday at 7 p.m. with different topics, different pláticas here, with different guests. And tonight we have an amazing panel talking about the importance of voting. Remember, folks, that if you want more information about voting, go to secvote.org. That's right. You see where all the fingers are pointing? secvote.org. So, yes, and there are many ways to get involved. I've learned so much just in this 45 minutes that it's not just about, checking the ballot and putting it. There is so much behind. You're voting with your actual vote, but you're also voting by getting educated, by other actions, by participating. There's so many ways in getting involved and making a difference. For those of you who are able to vote, exercise that privilege. If you're not able to vote, there are many ways to still make a difference. And I want to start wrapping up with and I want to start with you, Tamara. In these elections, there's so much at stake.
Mm-hmm.
What, from your personal perspective, what do you think are some of the most relevant issues that are, having an impact in our communities that it would be important to pay attention to? And when we are in front of the ballot, thinking about how can we make a difference in regards of some of these issues, because certainly we're not able to change everything, but changing one thing, it's still a big step in the right direction.
Okay, so briefly, I'll say education, housing, and climate. And then I'll give you like quick example on each one, like how does that relate to my voting or to me helping somebody vote, whether you can vote or not. You can get educated on all the issues and candidates and all that. With education, find out what school district you're in. If you're a voter, you get to vote your school district trustees on, and that's incredibly important. It's local. It's easier to get information. They're easy. Well, pre-pandemic was easier to also meet, right? So look them up. A lot of them are having Zooms and all of that. So there's that. And then in terms of housing, there's different, especially in the Bay Area, right? Because we know that the economic and housing crisis, that this is a major issue, and there's a lot of policies and initiatives that you have to get some information on, and then I'll kind of connect this back with the climate piece. There are organizations out there that are pushing forward initiatives, nonprofit organizations that are part of initiatives around land use, keeping land open, right? And in this era of climate change, you really have to start thinking, well, this isn't something that happens in another continent. This is here. Like we had that day this summer where it was the apocalypse. You all walked outside and it was orange at 10 o'clock in the morning. And you couldn't go outside for 3 weeks. So now I'm going to say this, and Peter's going to know that he'll probably say this, you follow the money, right? So you get all these flyers in your mailbox and you're like, who do I believe? You've got to look at those. Who's it paid by? The flyer is paid by different people, different entities, different organizations. Google them, right? Look at the fine print and see who are they. And on the initiatives, when you get your voter guide, look at the organizations as well and Google them. And if they're nonprofits, they'll have boards. Look at who's on their boards, right? Or ask around. Look at their Facebook pages. It takes a little bit more work, but you can dig around and find out. So again, in resumen, es education, housing, and climate change, en mi opinión.
Thank
Pietro?
you.
Yeah, I want to drop in a quick plug. We posted the registrar's website earlier. I wonder, Rodrigo, if you have the ability, you could throw up one more URL, but it's votersedge.org. votersedge.org. And this is a site that was originally started by I believe the League of Women Voters. It was Smart Voter before. This is a site where you can go, and if you plug in your address, in California at least, you can bring up. There you go. Excellent. That's exactly it. Thank you. So if you go to that website and you punch in your address, you'll be able to look up your entire ballot, everything that's on your ballot, all the candidates in the races, and you can look at there you go, and you can look at a bunch of information about the propositions and the measures that are on the ballot. You can see who is donating to some of these candidates and causes, right? Who are giving big money to try and get things passed, because that a lot of the times will tell you who's what's on the ballot and who it would benefit, right? So it's a great resource. Go there. You can get information about the background on candidates, biographies, videos of candidate forums. So it's and it's nonpartisan. They're not trying to get you to vote any one way. They're just giving you the unbiased information about everything that's on your ballot. So it's a really great resource. And I second everything Tamara said as far as making that connection between how these things impact you in your daily life and what it means on the ballot, right? Like what you're voting on and what that means for you. That's, as an organizer, as a community activist, that's one of the hardest things to do, is to help people understand that connection, because it's not always very obvious, right? You get, like Tamara said, you get the flyers and the ballot and you're like, what is all this stuff? I'll say stuff just because this is a clean show. And you don't know what to make of it sometimes. So use this website, this resource, Voters Edge, and also, like she said, talk to your friends, talk to your family, ask around, ask somebody, because more than likely somebody knows somebody. This is San Jose.
Thank you, Peter. Remember, folks, votersedge.org and
vote.org.
And vote.org. So, Avi, for you, from you as a young person, what are some of the issues that you consider important to pay attention to during these times?
There are so
Give us
many.
3.
Okay, fine. I mean, the main one for me right now, just because, I mean, it's all over the news, it's all over our social media. It's petition after petition is race. Race right now is a really big one, and the Black Lives Matter movement. And for me, that's for me personally, that, and obviously love is love. That's my biggest one, just because we see it every day, and it's the systemic racism, and it's our personal biases against other people, and that the fact that, this is really hard to say, but the fact that Breonna Taylor, still, her death hasn't been served justice yet, it's horrible. It's horrifying. Like, I can't imagine someone coming into my house and shooting 17 rounds at me. Like, it's not okay. And the fact that a police officer has the right just to pull anyone over, and if you're reaching for your phone or your wallet or your registration, and if you're a Black person, you're already about to get shot, just because, not for any other reason, but because you're Black. And that, to me, it's scary. Like, even as a brown person, my problems can never relate to what they go through. And it's important that if I can't understand what they're going through, if I can't really relate to what they're going through, then to give them the platform to say what they're going through and how I could help. So race for me is a big one in the Black Lives Matter movement.
Thank you. Peter, anything that you want to add in terms of the important issues to pay attention to when voting? I think you're muted.
Sorry, I muted myself so that I wouldn't interject. At the local level, there are a number of, you'll probably see a number of parcel taxes and bond measures on your ballot, and you probably have no idea what's a parcel tax, what's a bond measure. So in almost a lot of school districts this year are hurting because they just don't have the resources, and they generally don't have the resources to provide for their students. So they, from time to time, will ask the public to approve a little extra tax, like on your property tax bill, or if you rent, your landlord's property tax bill. Or they'll ask for use taxpayer money to basically to create a loan, a bond, right, to sell bonds and to get loan money so that they can either build things like build new facilities or upgrade their facilities, or in this case, in some school districts, refurbish because they haven't been remodeled or cleaned up in 50 years in some cases. So you're going to wonder what are these things and what am I being asked to do? Generally speaking, if they're asking for a parcel tax, it means they need extra money to pay teachers and to pay their staff, right? So if you would like to make sure that your teachers and your school staff are getting adequate resources and supplies for their kids, I would say look into supporting those taxes. And then bond measures are, mainly, like I said, for buildings. So B for bond, P for parcel, that's for people, right? B for bond, building. That's the easy way to remember it. So those, you'll see those probably every election. If you start voting, you'll see those on your ballot for one reason or another, city, county. So just know that's what those are for. And you don't have to vote for every one of them. And sometimes they deserve the money and sometimes they don't. So that's why it's really good to stay engaged when it's not voting season and not election season, because then you can hold the people that you vote for accountable, right? And you can and you can make sure that what they said they were going to do, that they're doing. And if they don't do it, you have a chance to vote them out, right, and vote for someone else, or you have a chance to vote for policies that will help, right? So yeah, like we've heard all night, make sure that you're looking all the way down that ballot, because the stuff at the bottom of the ballot in the end probably impacts you more than the stuff at the top of the ballot, or more directly, right? In terms of like all the issues we talked about, housing especially, and the climate. And then yeah, I'd go deep into the ballot. There's so many issues out there right now, but I'd say the most important thing is understanding what those local races are, because they have so much more impact on your daily life than you'd think.
Great, thank you very much. I want to just give thanks to Jessica Torres for your saludos. Muchas gracias, Jessica. And Miguel Ozuna, I love you, Tita, from Juliana. Thank you. Well, folks, we're approaching the end, and I want to close with some thoughts from each of your panelists. In terms of, I mean, there's so much at stake right now. There's so many issues and so much happening on top of a pandemic that we're going through. We're facing. And I want to just ask you a simple question. How are you taking care of yourself? And what is your advice for folks to do some self-care, be on the right mind, to be able to exercise the right and privilege to vote or be active? And I will just leave it open for you to whoever wants to just make a comment in the last. I want each one of you to give us your comment. Okay, Peter.
I'm probably the worst person to ask as far as self-care, because my wife would tell you I don't take very good care of myself sometimes. But no, in all honesty, it's a lot of it is just turning off the TV sometimes, right? I know I say get educated, but there's so many other ways to get educated than watching the cable news or the TV and the local news. Sometimes it's just too, it's too much, and you need to tune it out and sort of bring things back. Talk to someone in your pod. Give a friend a call. I call my mom. My mom keeps me pretty sane usually. So she's probably happy that that I do check in. So yeah, call someone in your family. Call a friend. Talk to them, or take a break. Read a book. Find a book in your house, and take a breath. Make sure that you're breathing steadily and really taking in nice deep breaths and breathing out all that aggression and anxiety that builds up and fear, because the world is so scary out there. It really is. It's not a joke. That you can't bring that in every day. You can't internalize that all the time. You have to find a space, whether that's with someone else or on your own, to just breathe and remember that you still have the power to change things. You are not helpless and you're not alone. So that's what I like to remind myself of every day, and it helps.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you. AB, do you want to go next?
Of course. I know my generation like just diving right into things and like constantly be posting it on our feeds and doing anything we can to help, and that gets really mentally draining sometimes, to the point where like you feel like numb inside in a sense, because you're just trying to take on everyone's problems and fix it. But at the end of the day, like reality, we can't do that. Like as much as we want to, we can't. So like Peter said, literally just turning it all off, logging out of social media for a bit. I know for me personally, I'll call up my friends and be like, do you guys want to play a game with me? Or let's go play Among Us, or let's read a book, or let's do this, or let's do that. Just because it's hard constantly being in today's age, just because of everything's going on. And if you're a really empathetic person like I am, you really tend to feel everyone's emotions at once, and it's overwhelming. So yeah, just for youth, connecting with your friends, even if it's not talking, even if you're like not talking, just like having their presence with you online, because wear a mask. Don't go outside right now, please. Coronavirus is real. And just connecting with your friends or your family, and that's the best advice I could give.
Thank you, Tamara.
I think doing something simple. Today I was like, well, I'm gonna comb and brush my hair and braid it, and put a flower in my hair, and that made me happy, right? And I was excited about this. This was good. So I think making choices to say yes to certain things and no to other things is really important. Self-care. Not you don't have to be at everything, and you don't have to do everything. But some things you do have to show up for, and you do have to take care of it because you don't want to look back on these times and you didn't do anything about it, right? And that's what gives me hope as well. Also, not related to the question, but look what I found.
Oh my God! Look at that! It's the Teatro
The
Visión patch.
Girl
Is that a
Scout
patch?
patch.
Girl.
Oh,
It's
I
a
need
Girl
that.
Scout patch. So shout out to Carla Collins and that whole crew with the Girl Scouts that would come to the productions. And so that's also what gives me, honestly, like memories, like popping up on like Facebook and Instagram. I try not to get sad about it. I look at it and I say that was really good, and we'll come back to that one day, and it'll be different. So this isn't something I keep it up in the living room in the little repisita with all the rest of my junk, because Teatro Visión is really special to me. So memories too.
Thank you. What a wonderful way to wrap this up. And folks, we are only 10 days to elections. And remember, if you need some information about voting, sccvote.org, and also votersedge.org, some couple of good resources that we have. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart to AB Ozuna for being here. Thank you so much. Your voice was so important, and I'm glad that you were able to be here. And I'm glad that you were able to articulate, your thoughts so well. Thank you very much, Peter.
Thank you
Thank
for
you as
having me.
always, Peter, big champion, always participating and being, just ready to make a difference. Thank you very much, Peter. And Tamara, you're an icon now. You're so respected and loved in the community.
Really would be like,
I thought you were crying.
Thank you very much. And what a wonderful way to close this with Lee
Yeah, Lee.
Henderson, our managing director. Great panel, everyone. Thank you very much.
What?
And thank you to all the people who joined us tonight at La Hora del Mitote.
thank you.
We remind you that we're here every Friday at 7 p.m. with wonderful guests like the ones that we had tonight. Thank you so much. Muchos abrazos y que pasen muy buenas noches. Thank you, folks. And